Welcome to another episode of Nonprofit Fundamentals. I'm Adam Holzberg, joined alongside with April Kushner, and today we have a special guest, Josh Kligman, the CEO and co-founder of Storyraise, and we're going to talk about annual reports. So to start us off, Josh, why don't you give us a little background on your company and your path in the nonprofit world?
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, April. Well, I'm glad to be here. And Storyraise is a solution for nonprofits and foundations to create digital reports and tell your donors how much of an impact you've been making with their gifts. And it's really focused on story raising and increasing donor engagement as part of a retention plan. And my background comes from the nonprofit world, really on the marketing side, helping out fundraisers and creating various types of reports to do just that and connect people with the brand and tell the stories that they care about, and doing that in a personalized way if possible, so that those that want to give their money, give their time, take more interest in the organizations can do so, and you make it really easy for them to do just that.
Nice. So I'm going to peg you the annual report guru. That's okay.
Okay. Let's try.
No pressure.
Yeah.
So let's just start it off. So can you give us a little background on what is an annual report and why is this important?
Well, it's a solution for nonprofits to really tell their story. It's not the 990. I mean, that's the annual report, right? As you both know, that's required. But boards and marketing and fundraising teams really want to be able to have an additional communication piece back to all types of stakeholders. I mean, it's the donors. I mentioned volunteers just a second ago, but the board too, and community partners, and show what's going on with different programs. And there's the story, I think, behind the numbers and the actual numbers themselves, and those are of course important. And I'm not going to sit here and tell the accounting and the tax team that it shouldn't be like the lead, but in this case, it's not. It's about showing how the gifts that were made are impacting the programs in terms of those tangibles and how the community is changing.
Yeah, numbers only really tell one part of the story. The impact is really, the main character for the nonprofit storyline.
Yeah, and what that impact is really important. You could give money to an organization because you're told that a new playground is going to go into a town, right? Well, the stories that you want to hear on that playground that come in annual reports could be, I guess, really one of three options. One, you can never hear anything of it, or you're not looking at the right marketing channels where that story is being told. So if your nonprofit does a great job of telling that story on social media, but your audience isn't looking at those social media channels because they're not in the same demographic, they'll miss out on it. Two is an option to tell a story on that playground and say, oh, this playground changed the lives of kids and families, and it's so great because they use it. That's good. But three, and I'm hinting at this being the best option, is really going deeper with the story with really specific and memorable points. So maybe there's specific beneficiaries of that gift, like actual kids and families that you can highlight in your story to say, hey, before they didn't have a playground and they were doing X, Y, and Z, but now they love using this result of the program because they go there every day after school and it's enriching their lives. And you talk about why. There's a story in there that makes the donor really connect with that gift that they were partaking in. And if that resonates with them and they hear about that often, they'll be more likely to give again.
Are there some other key elements in the annual report? I know the financials are in there, maybe not the highlight, more.
We're a little biased to the financials, I guess.
Yeah. We like I remember. So I used to work at a national nonprofit, and I was there for over 10 years, and I would work on making the reports. And the one piece I had to wait on was the financials, right? Because they had to be audited. So it was always a placeholder where everything else was done, and then we had to sit there and and wait. But no offense, it's like the most important part. Like you have to have the numbers, right? That's the only part that has to be really, like, 110%, factually checked.
Are there some other
But the
key
stories, I
elements that
mean,
get included?
yeah, so the stories could be broken up into other key elements that go through all your programs. So if have unrestricted funds that come in, and then you're also running, um, you know, um, let's say 3 specific programs, so you could start to write a table of contents for an annual report that breaks up all these different elements into different sections within the table of contents. So you can have an overview and then like a letter from an executive director or the head of the board. Um, I think I've seen some creative work recently from schools and organizations like Goodwill that'll make videos as openings. That's always fun. But then you can have a section for program A, a section for program B, a section for program C. And, you have the financials. You could have an honor roll that lists out all your donors. And then most importantly, hey, just a way to get in touch at the end. But the meat in it is not to be hung up on which elements you're gonna figure out for your story, what your table of contents looks like. It's going deep with that storytelling. So I'd rather see an extremely short 1-page report that does a really good job of explaining how the money was being used than a 36 or 40-page report of so much text that it's making me dizzy and I can't even read it, and I can't even look at it on my cell phone because it's too overwhelming.
Right.
You don't want to read War and
Have the
Peace?
opposite effect. Yeah, right. I mean, think of how much time organizations spend on these reports. I've spent a ton of time. It's intense, and sometimes large teams are writing and writing and writing. But maybe start by asking your constituents what they want to see first.
So you have all this work in this annual report. So what, in the end, is the value the nonprofit's getting from it?
Well, you want it to support all the other communication and marketing efforts that you have. So it's just as important as your newsletter and email campaigns that you have and social media campaigns. So you want to see an ROI of it moving the needle. So typically annual reports are kind of this way to say thank you. And you're not necessarily asking for a gift. So if you're saying thank you, it's really hard to connect the dotted line to, hey, what is the ROI in the sense of dollars, right, for the next year? You can look and say, hey, this year versus last year versus the year before, we're hitting our goals because we've had an increase in donations, and we must be doing all these different things right, like our social media is right, the annual report is right, our gala or whatever events we have is right. But with the annual report specifically, I think you can look at insights to see if the donors are actually engaging with the stories. And the way to do that is to just track certain metrics and see what they're reading and what they're looking at. And we're in an age where if you could do that, and you could do that quite easily.
How do they
So
do that?
how could they do it?
Yeah.
What is the way to do it?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we look at is how many times people are clicking around within the sections of a report. You can email out a report and you can see how many of your donors or any stakeholders really are opening reports. So you have your open rate, right? You can see how many people click on that link from an email, and you have your click-through rate. And that's all important, but it doesn't mean they read your report. Then you could see, and you can get all this from your existing email platform, like let's say something really simple and even free like MailChimp, or something a little more robust like Constant Contact. But then you could see through Google Analytics how much time people are spending on the report. And I thought for a while that was good, but let's say your donor opens up your report and it looks like they spent 90 minutes on it, and they're a major gift donor, and you're going to lunch with them tomorrow, or they're coming to your big event, and you want to reference like that report because they loved it so much, and you mention something to them, and then all of a sudden they say, oh yeah, no, it was good. And maybe they didn't even get to read it. Maybe the doorbell rang, maybe their phone rang, or they answered a text and they got distracted. Just because it's up on their browser doesn't mean they're actively looking at reports.
Right.
The engagement of a donor has to come down to them clicking around on the report. So you can have in web-based reports, and we do this at Storyraise, different sections in a table of contents, and they're going from web page to web page, and they're reading all the stories that you're telling them. You're talking about the programs, and you could see on the back end that they're clicking around and clicking through. They're actually engaging it. And one of the things we intend to do soon is give donor engagement scores, and that's really the only metric to see if there's this link between the donors, you creating the report, and the donor loving it, because it's not going to be about the gifts that they give if you're just saying thank you, which is the right thing to do in an annual report.
Do you see a lot of paper annual reports still? Because you talked about digital being able to track these metrics of, how much they're clicking around and reading it and opening it. Do you still see a lot of paper annual reports?
I see a little, and I think it's really segmented by audience. So, I think I got 2 in the mail in the last couple of months, and it was because I could tell they were sending it to everybody in the neighborhood or everybody in the zip code of the county, right? There's a great group that does a lot of consulting around annual reports and impact reports, especially across nonprofits, healthcare, higher ed, various foundations, called the Donor Relations Group. And they had some sort of contest, I think, where they wanted all the customers that they work with to mail in, printed out versions of the reports just to study them, right? So I saw some pictures of that on LinkedIn, and I see some there, but there's mostly these audience segments of older constituents that are being asked to receive paper reports in the mail because they're used to writing a check, or almost every nonprofit I talk to says, well, we have this one board member that wants to hold it in their hand. And that's all true and good. And we support that with our customers. But the vast majority are moving towards digital, meaning web-based, because there's more that you can do there. You can't easily open up a PDF on a cell phone and without pinching and zooming in, read it really clearly. And 60% of Storyraise customers are having the reports opened on cell phones. Everything I look at, I feel like I'm constantly on the go. I'm looking at it myself, and I want to see it clearly. And if there's something like a video or a social media post that's embedded in the story, in the report, and you're telling that as part of like a way to complement written text, because you don't want to just have long strings of text. It's boring. You gotta think about something that's more web friendly to read, and it seems to be the future. We also learned like 80% of customers that 80% of donors that we surveyed, donors said that they want to see more transparency in different types of reports that they get. So if they want to see that, just think about meeting the donors where they are and delivering it to them in a mechanism that makes it just so easy for them to digest. So that's why we're seeing less printed and more digital, because these, massive computers we all have in our pocket right now.
Yeah, I think that's the trend.
Yeah,
It definitely seems like mobile friendly then is the way they go to make sure it's as accessible as possible, right?
Yeah, I mean, even with mobile, I talked about saying thank you, but mobile even makes it easier to ask for gifts when there is a solicitation type report or a case for giving or something for end of year. And all that's easily trackable. And if it's right or wrong or works for you or it doesn't, you'll learn from that, and then you'll know the next year. I think without that, there isn't a really easy way, I think, to gather those insights.
Okay.
So, all right, so we've talked a lot about annual reports, but that's not the only report out there. Annual reports should be part of like a larger campaign, I guess, a whole year-long campaign of touches with your donors. So what other kind of reports are there?
Yeah, that's the way I see it. And there's some other types of reports with sort of interchangeable names, but there are differences. So an impact report is another one. And impact reports probably, for the most part, focus on one particular type of program because donors want to see the impact that one program has. Having said that, I see a lot of impact reports that really are annual reports, and it doesn't really matter. The whole idea is getting it out there, right? So that your donors know what's up and they know the story that you want to tell. We also see donor reports, and donor reports are more like one-to-one reports. So you have mid-size or major donors, and you want to tell them or their family foundation how they've been supportive with their incredibly generous gift. You could personalize a report just for that one person or that one small group and talk to them. I've also seen event recaps, which are just great ways to tell all the donors who couldn't make a gala, a golf tournament, a major event on a campus, whatever it may be, what happened and what the impact is like. And then a lot of thank yous. We have customers that make thank you videos that are out there just, they're not really reports, but they're almost like landing pages, so that throughout the year, there's all types of ways to just go ahead and show the impact.
Yeah, it sounds like you can really personalize them and be strategic with them as well.
Yeah, you can. And if you know your audience segments, and it could just be as simple as by gift size or by interest, personalization can go a long way.
Yeah.
Nice. So I think we're running out of time, but do you want to give like a final 30-second thought on how Storyraise can really amplify a nonprofit's in reports, or any kind of reports, I should say?
Yeah, sure, Adam. I think that personalization that we're just talking about, that April mentioned, is really the key, because Storyraise has the unique ability to have nonprofits create one report and send it out to thousands of different people, and everyone will see their own personalized version of it. So an opening letter could say, "Dear April, thank you so much." And then because you gave to a certain program or you're at a certain giving level, I can customize the stories behind the scenes and show you something different than what Adam's receiving. And I think that's just really how technology can help support nonprofits. And we're a team of former nonprofit, employees. Almost all of our staff has been working with nonprofits or for nonprofits for all or most of their careers. So we just want to keep helping in that vein.
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing all things reports. We'll be signing off. Thank you, everyone.